Welcome class, and thank you for joining me for our next notes video. Today we're going to be focusing on section 1.3, algebraic expressions. So by the end of this lesson, what I want you to get out of it is how to evaluate and simplify algebraic expressions. Now again, just to begin and to train you how to watch these videos, the things you should have in front of you. You should have your notes packet because you need to be taking the notes from this video, which implies you need something to write with so you can actually take those notes. And you should have a calculator in front of you to be doing the calculations alongside with me. So let's jump right into example 1. Write an algebraic expression that models the word phrase, 5 times the quantity, 3 less than a number. So this can seem a little bit daunting at first. What I want to go over before we dive into that is the little key underneath it. I want you to realize, to use parentheses when you see the words sum, difference, or quantity. Alright, those are going to be your 3 key phrases to know to use parentheses. So, in this one, I see the word quantity, which means everything after that, it's going to be in a parenthesis. So now let's start writing this out. 5 times the quantity. Well, 5 times means 5, then multiplication. Now we've already discussed, we need parentheses. 3 less than a number. Okay, so I want us to consider this carefully because this can trip up some students. 3 less than a number. Well, let's think about 3 less than your age. Okay? So consider that for a moment. 3 less than your age. So for example, I'm 26. So 3 less than my age would be 23. Now, I want you to notice you didn't take 3 minus your age, okay? Less than actually flips the order that you consider that. You take that number, and in this case we don't know what the number is, so I want to call it x. You subtract 3 from it. Okay, so whenever you have a problem like this, I want you to consider your age, okay? That's the best way to not fall for that trap and to write it in the correct order, okay? And then looking for those words will help you make sure to remember to use parentheses, sum, difference, or quantity. Now, in our next example, you'll see some other words that I want you to identify. Write an algebraic expression that models the following situation. You are allotted 1,000 texts this month and use 30 per day. How many texts will be left after 12 days? The word I want you to notice is per. Okay? So, per, each, every. Those words indicate a rate of change, okay? Now, for the sake of writing these expressions, when you're dealing with a rate, I want you to think of that as multiplication, okay? Now, in a moment, I'll get to what that means. Now, to start off with, you're allotted 1,000 texts. So you're starting with 1,000 texts at the beginning of the month. And you use 30 per day. Okay, so the fact that you're using them means that you are taking those away from that total, okay? That is what using them up means. So using 30 per day, and again, 30 per day, I told you, is a rate. Or in this case, multiply, because if you're using 30 of them for 12 days, you're subtracting 30 off 12 times. Well, you don't want to write that out 12 times, so just write it 30 times 12, okay? Each and every work that same way, okay? When you see it, I want you to think rate, and I want you to think multiplication. Now, this next one has a little twist on that. You get 6 hours of sleep every night, plus an extra 7 minutes every time you hit the snooze button. Write an expression that represents the amount of sleep you get nightly based on the number of times you hit the snooze button. So I know your sleep based on the number of times you hit the snooze button. Well, you're starting off with 6 hours of sleep, okay? So, now, you probably noticed the word every is actually here. But I want you to notice we're talking about on a nightly basis. So that means we're talking about one night. So that every really is not the every that we're looking for in this case, okay? Because it specifies later in the problem, we're talking about a single night, one night. So we're talking about 6 hours of sleep. And what's happening that night? Well, we get 7 minutes every time you hit the snooze button. All right, so again, there's that word every, which I gave you on our list of special words to watch out for, okay? So we get an extra 7 minutes every time you hit the snooze button. Well, we don't know how many times we're gonna hit the snooze button. We're writing an expression about it. And since we don't know how many times we hit it, that's gonna be our variable, okay? That's gonna be our x. Well, if you're hitting the snooze button, it means you're gaining sleep. You're getting more sleep. And again, that word every means you're taking that 7 minutes, multiplying it by the number of times you hit the snooze button. Now, something may seem off here, okay? I want you to notice something. Here we're talking about hours. Here we're talking about minutes. So right now, our units don't line up. I cannot leave it looking like this, okay? Now, the way I think is easiest to remedy this problem is 6 hours. 6 hours, well, even if you multiply that by 60, it'll give you the number of minutes. That is 360 minutes, okay? And the 7 is already in minutes. You could convert it to hours, but that'll leave you with decimals, which students typically don't like. So I would convert it to minutes. 360 minutes plus 7 more minutes for every time you hit the snooze button. And that is going to express how much sleep you're getting. Right, moving to our next example. So, example 4. Evaluate the expression. Remember to use the order of operations. Put parentheses around every number that is plugged in for the variable. All right, excellent. So, 10 minus 3x squared. Now, I want you to notice a hint. Put parentheses around any number that's plugged in. So what that means is, I'm going to take this, 10 minus 3, and I'm going to put that negative 2 in parentheses. So that is what I'm going to type in. Now, if you have a TI-83 or TI-84 and you type it in exactly like that, you will get the correct answer, okay? Your calculator will recognize that as an answer. Now, if you don't have one or you want to be cautious and take it step by step, that is when I need you to remember good old PEMDAS, okay? So when you're evaluating these expressions, don't forget PEMDAS, okay? So the first thing are the parentheses and exponents. So negative 2 squared, negative 2 times negative 2, well, that gives us 4. After that, multiplication. 3 times 4 gives us 12. After multiplication and division come addition and subtraction. So finally, you will get an answer of negative 2. So that's how you can actually work it out. Otherwise, do try plugging it into your calculator just as you see it. It should give you the right answer if you're using a TI-83 or TI-84. Now, I want you to experiment here. What if we didn't use the parentheses? So, what it's really getting at is, to a calculator, the difference between this and this. To a calculator, those are two very different things. The first one, squaring negative 2. That means negative 2 times negative 2. That gives us the 4 that we would be looking for. The bottom one, -2 squared, if you type that into your calculator by accident, what your calculator is going to do is strictly, order of operations, is going to do 2 squared for you, which is 4. But then it's going to take the opposite of 2 squared. So your calculator would kick out a -4 instead of +4. So that's why whenever you're plugging in numbers for a variable, always be in a habit of putting it in parentheses. If you always put it in parentheses, you will never go wrong, okay? You will always be able to get to the answer. So, for the full question, what do you get if you don't use parentheses? Well, if you just type it like this, -3 times -2 squared, now you're going to be subtracting a 3 times a -4. Negative times a negative is positive. So the incorrect answer, you would end up all the way up at 22. Huge difference. Just because you didn't put the parentheses like you should have right here. Okay? So whenever you're substituting numbers in, always put your parentheses. All right? So, what I'm going to do is I want to leave that last example to go over in class together. So, this is going to end our note video. We are going to split this up into 2 halves. I'm going to do example 5 in class for you, and then we're going to split this in half. The rest of the video will come in a second part. So, thank you for watching my notes video, and I look forward to finishing off example 5 with you during class.